This video is backed by the Department of Commerce. Why is that important? Who are they and what do they do? Commerce is the business of selling and buying on a large scale. So essentially the Department of Commerce would be the United States Department of Making Money. So anytime you're talking business, you're talking supply and demand. My ability to supply your demand determines the value of a product and how much money I make, whether it's ground level, street, mom and pops, global corporation, or government. At any time a large entity, i.e. the United States government, focuses, studies, or does extensive research on a particular subject, it's because that particular subject has the potential to impact that entity on a large scale. Who is the focus of this study? The black family. And why are they the focus of this study? Let's watch.
I'm talking about a new market, a big new market. Millions upon millions of new prospects with $15 billion to spend. That's right, I said $15 billion. That's a lot of money, isn't it? To be able to tell you the secret of selling the Negro, we did a lot of digging. We talked to leading businessmen, the customers, and the salesmen. We went to Washington, D.C. We set up cameras and other key points around the nation. And out of this all, there emerged a story. The story of a new market.
So you just heard a spoken agenda of the United States government for the black family and the black family's dollars due to their overwhelming success, despite the obstacles of racism, discrimination, lynching, and just basic human rights that they faced in 1954. Let's continue to watch.
Yes, this is the market we're talking about, the new Negro family. Their name is Wells or Wilson, Smith or Brown or Alexander or Breen. They live in Chicago, in Atlanta or New York, in Detroit, St. Louis, Los Angeles, any one of 1,000 cities and towns. The truth of the matter is that the Negro lives pretty much the same as other folks. He buys pretty much the same way too. But just the same, a lot of old doubts and opinions keep cropping up over and over again.
I don't like to do business with Negroes. They're drifters. You can't keep track of them.
Yes, although a lot of people think that way, the truth is that 1 out of every 3 Negro families living in cities today owns its own home. That figure comes directly from the United States Bureau of Census.
Maybe so, but Negroes are poor credit risks.
Not more of a credit risk than any other group. Actually, the Negro home buyer meets his payments faithfully, often more faithfully than other race groups in the same economic level. That's the information we got from people who ought to know, the National Association of Real Estate Boards.
Well, maybe, but I've always heard that Negroes buy shoddy, poor quality merchandise.
No, it's just the other way around. According to leading researchers, in proportion to population and income, Negroes buy more quality products than any other comparable United States group. You see, there are a lot of confused notions about the Negro customer. Here is the Honorable Sinclair Weeks, the Secretary of Commerce of the United States.
In the Department of Commerce, we are constantly alert to trends that mean a healthier national economy, better business for the nation as a whole. Recently, we have been interested in a rising young market, one that represents a huge potential for goods and services. I'm referring to the new Negro market. The tremendous buying power of this group is backed, of course, by an increased earning power. The average Negro family's income is at a record high. In fact, since as a whole the Negro market has a total income of about $15 billion every year.
Buying power has resulted in a class Negro market, a profitable, above-average income group of consumers. For example, the nation's largest newspaper and magazine research organization, Daniel Starch and Staff, reports these significant figures. More than 51% of the readers of Ebony magazine have a record player in their homes. Almost 64% own a television set. And almost 78% enjoy the convenience of an electric refrigerator. It is also a fact and this is from the magazine The Food Field Reporter, that Negroes spend almost $3 billion a year for food alone. Per capita, they buy more cosmetics, drugs, and toiletries than anyone else in the country. And their children are better educated, too, because since 1930, enrollment in Negro colleges is up 2,500%.
So you just seen and heard with your own ears that this is the picture of the black family across the nation in thousands of cities. Despite the oppression and discrimination that we faced in 1954, we are a dignified people because we come from a royal heritage, and we've always been a dignified people. But our minds have been targeted and been under attack with these repeated images and messages that we're less than, so that we can believe the opposite of who we are. But let's continue to watch with understanding.
We set up several cameras, candid cameras, in a number of shopping locations. Take a look at these shoppers. Notice what a large proportion of them are Negro. What's the reason? It's simply this. Negro families are moving into the cities where there are more job opportunities. Here they find occupations with more prestige and security, jobs that pay more money. Since 1940, in San Francisco alone, the Negro market has increased by 89%. In Chicago, by 81%. Houston, Texas, 45%. Philadelphia, 50%. The impact of this new buying force is so tremendous that actually in 14 major United States markets, a product cannot be number one without Negro support. Today, Negroes shop downtown. They shop in supermarkets. They shop in small neighborhood stores. They'll buy from anyone who wants to sell to them. But we all know that before you can sell to customers, you've got to get to know them. You must understand something about them. What do the Negro customers buy?
The secret of selling to the Negro is expressed in one word. That word is recognition. Now, there's nothing unusual about that. People want to be recognized. They need recognition. That's basic in all of us. But perhaps because he's had so little of it, the Negro needs even more. To begin with, most Negroes buy by brand. They ask for products by name. They're quick to turn down off-brands. Do you wonder why? Well, listen to what this customer is thinking.
That last hat I bought just didn't hold up at all.
You see, for a long time, the Negro has been sold a lot of shoddy, second-class merchandise. So now he asks for name brands in order to make sure he gets his money's worth. Buying by brand, that's the first important Negro buying habit. Now for the second. The Negro buys good quality merchandise. Symbols of quality and prestige are very important to the Negro customer. This woman, for example, is buying fine crystalware. But she is also buying the admiration and approval of her friends and relatives. Listen to her thoughts.
My, isn't it beautiful? I can hardly wait to show it to Sally and Joan.
And here's the third thing to remember when selling to a Negro customer. When he specifically asks for one thing, don't try to sell him something else. Don't try to switch him at the point of sale. If you do, he'll probably react something like this.
Doesn't he think I've got the money to pay for it?
There's a reason for this reaction. Again, because he's had experience with cheap merchandise, the Negro resents being offered a substitute.
So you just heard him say that this is how we think and why we think. But you got to understand that there's an agenda working. It's to program our minds and others' minds with false identity that they project of us. Because notice this, even if you take doo-doo and put it in the prettiest wrapping paper, the package is still filled with doo-doo. What he just said is that we love quality and we buy quality, but the reason that we buy quality is because we come from less. So, but the truth of the matter is, that doesn't even make sense, but the truth of the matter is that we come from Africa, which is the most precious, has the most precious resources, the most abundance of precious resources that are scarce on every other part of the globe. hence why every nation comes to Africa and tries to steal their share of these precious resources. See, we like quality because we come from quality. And even throughout the atrocities of slavery and having our families murdered and slaughtered in our face, we still maintain our dignity, maintain our respect, maintain our values and the sense of family throughout that. I don't know if anybody else in the world could have done that. Because, see, we love quality because even when you take the outward or the external quality away, the internal quality remains. But we got to watch this with understanding. Let's continue to watch.
Another point. The Negro family does things together, as a group. The family works as a unit. It lives as a unit, and it buys as a unit.
So what do you say? The black family lives as a unit, moves as a unit, works as a unit, thinks as a unit. That's the secret to the success of the black family or the black people. So if you want to destroy the black people, what do you target? The source, the family. So if we want to turn this around, how do we build it back up? We got to reestablish the source of success in the black family. See, that's why they taking a black man out of the house, because now the black woman has to assume responsibilities and duties that was never intended for her, nor should be her responsibility, but she has to do it. But man, I'm watching. The third eye seen it coming before it happened.
Luxuries. Another trait of the Negro market is the fact that it is a pre-sold market. We know that the Negro buys by brand, and he buys the brands that he knows something about. Where does the Negro buyer get this information? We know that Negro customers are turning more and more to the publications that are tailored specifically to their needs, that give them the news and the information that they want to read about. Many leading businessmen and companies already know this.
Our records show that advertising in Ebony has been effective in many ways. As all good advertising should, it has built a terrific amount of goodwill and has brought a volume of sales and sales inquiries.
A representative of the Alaga Syrup Company makes this statement.
Because of Alaga's regard for the influence of ebony in the Negro market, advertising space was doubled. Alaga's long experience in selling to Negroes now takes the most direct route to its best customers.
You can see that proportionately, more men and women read the ad in Ebony than the one in the other magazine. And they did a better job of remembering it, too. A greater percentage of readers noted, associated, and remembered the ad in Ebony. But now, wait a minute. If the Negro market is so big and easy to reach, why aren't more companies going out after it? Here are millions of customers for what you have to sell. Customers with $15 billion.
So we just basically had an infomercial that says, hey, black people are people too. They're actually human beings and they have a lot of money, so let's get it. See, if we were already considered human beings, you don't need an infomercial to tell you that black people are human beings. And I'm not saying that it's anybody's fault now, because when this system was first established, it's definitely a system that was first established. They weren't around, but it's still in place, and people are still benefiting from it, and people are still being oppressed by it. If you don't believe it, let's go back to the beginning of America or United States. Was there any intent? Let's look at the intent, because to understand the actions of a thing, you have to first understand its intent. So when the United States was first made, or the intent of the idea of the United States, was there an intent to have the blacks as citizens? Blacks were brought over here with one sole purpose. The Constitution or none of that was written with the idea of blacks involved. You have to understand that. So the system, everything that was created for whites. It's not saying, oh yeah, the blacks here and the whites here. This is just the truth. These are facts. These are facts stand the test of time. So they weren't intended for blacks. Blacks were brought here for servitude or for slavery. Even when you're talking about foreigners and other what do you call them? Immigrants. Other immigrants. They weren't. It wasn't a large amount of immigrants coming over here of other races. No, because honestly, this nation's first intent and the rules and everything, the laws and the systems that were set up for whites. So we're talking all the way past the 60s. We couldn't even do basic human rights of drinking and eating and all these things. I mean, in the same place that you eat, in the same place that you drink. So do you really think that corporate America was wide open for us? Do you really think that all these institutions were saying, hey, get this house and build wealth, black people? I mean, we just fought for the right to drink out the same water fountain in you, like in the 60s. And so now, if you just even got established, now it's going to take time for those rules and those laws to even take effect. So it's like the law of inertia, mass, or like perpetual motion. What does that mean? An object that's in motion will stay in motion until impacted by equal or greater force. See, what equal or greater force has stopped this system of oppression? Civil rights, affirmative action, reparations. Oh, we didn't get okay, but see, this is what I'm telling you. You might not understand that you're benefiting from it if you're a white person, and it's not against white people, but you're definitely benefiting from it. See, watch this. So if you have all this long time period of the nation being built, you have some people who are servants and other people who are benefiting from the servitude of others. This would be the oppression. And what are they building? They're building structures. They're building systems in which you can make money and make livings. And by the time that the people that are in servitude, the servants, the slaves, or whatever, the oppressed, even have the idea of equal rights, the whole system has been established. You already have like kind throughout the whole system in positions of power. So this conversation could go on forever, but so I'm gonna end it right here. But with this understanding, until we acknowledge the problem, a solution can be had. But we can't change nobody else. We only can work on changing ourselves. So the ball starts with us. And if we're not equipped with the tools of our history, we're not prepared to start working on our future. Man, this your man Tim. This God Man Ministries. I love y'all. Y'all comment, like, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think. Talk to y'all later. God is.